Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome, my third secondary students, to the second semester of Durus Online. And we continue with the book, and we got to Unit 6 now, which is the final unit. And today for Unit 6, we have vocabulary and grammar. As you can see, always taken from your book, Traveler 6. And as usual, we'll start with what we will learn today. Two objectives, as you can see. One, to practice compound words starting with the word back. Two, to apply the present tenses correctly. So we got something about compound words, words that come together like bone back or backbone, like, come back and so on. And for number two, it's all about tenses. And we get started with, it's money. And there's an old man who's making some pension funds. And also, we're talking in Unit 6 about having a plan to save money, either if you want to go outside Saudi Arabia to study somewhere so you can make a budget, or for your life, you can start having a pension plan. In both cases, once you become a man or a dependent woman, a married man or a married woman, and you have a family, you need to start a pension plan. Also, you need to start to make some kind of budget of your annual income. So both plans are recommended for you once you become a responsible man or a responsible woman in society. So you got your job, you have a family, and now you need to think about, how am I gonna manage my money? So you need to have a pension plan where you can take, for example, if you take 10,000 riyals every month, you may take 1,000 riyals and put it away as a pension plan. So every month you got 1,000 riyals. So by the end of the year, you're supposed to have 12,000 riyals, and you may have a plan for them to go for a summer vacation, or you can keep them for 3 years or 2 years, and they become 2,400 and so on. And as for annual income, so if your salary is 10,000 riyals per month, so every year you're supposed to have made your total annual income is 120,000 riyals. So this is your annual income. So you take 20 riyals for food, 20 riyals for car and expenses, 20 for school for your children, and so on. This is both related, the pension plan and the annual income plan. So if we go back to our lesson today is vocabulary. So we'll start with the vocabulary, which is word combinations. You know that if you say in a sentence like, my annual income is barely enough to cover my expenses, so I have to stick to a tight budget to make ends meet. So annual income, most of the time they come together, okay? But the word come and in, both together they become income. So also there's some kind of combination. It's the same like sun and light. Sun is the sun as a star, and light could be a noun, could be a verb, could be an adjective. And if you put them together, they become one word, and it's sunlight. So for the annual income and the pension plan is that if for the pension plan, if I start a pension plan now, I will be able to live comfortably when I retire. So this guy has a pension plan that he takes 1,000 every month and put him in the bank, for example. So he worked for 40 years. So he got a very good, amount of, money in a bank, because when he retires, he's gonna find too much money, so he can save this money for the future where he retired and he has no job. And if you have your annual income, so you have to control it. So as the man say, for the annual income is barely enough, so I need to cover my expenses. Okay, so you should make a tight or a strict budget. So words easily confused. If we talk about vocabulary, we got some words that are confusing to us. If you take the words in red, royalties and allowance and bonus, they're a little bit some kind of words or terminology that is used in finance. It's all about money. So if you read in a sentence, you find the meaning and you a little bit sense the meaning, and always go back to the dictionary and check the meaning. The royalties from the books written in his youth help him maintain a good standard of living even after he stopped writing. So the money that he got from the royalties, because he was a writer, he saved it. So after he stopped writing, he found the money. 2, when I was young, my parents would give me a weekly allowance, which I usually spent on sweets. And that is bad. Don't spend it on sweets because you ruin your teeth. So it's better to find it or save it somewhere. So it's like an allowance. You can say in my salary there is housing allowance, there is transportation allowance, and this is some kind of money maybe your father would give you every week. So we say like take 50 reals or 100 reals. This is your allowance for 1 week. And number 3, Ibrahim was elected Employee of the Year by his colleagues and received a bonus for his outstanding performance. It's like he received more money for his salary because he was the best of the employees. Now let's put these words into sentences and choose from A, B, C, and choose the word that fits the meaning. Now use the correct form of the following words. He is a successful writer and earns thousands of dollars a year from the royalties, from the allowance, or from the bonus on his book. And that is actually almost the same sentence like before. So he's a successful writer and earns thousands of dollars a year from his royalties. 2, at first I wasn't interested in starting a or an plan, but my best friend convinced me of having one. So at first I wasn't interested in starting an old age plan, a pension plan, or an elderly plan. And of course it's a pension plan. Okay, so if you have one, you'll find it when you are old and you don't have a job. Now if we move to the grammar part of today, which is very important for you, which is about the conditionals. In English we have 4 conditionals. The first one, which is very easy, we don't have a result, so we call it zero conditional. So we call it zero conditional. Always the conditional they start with if, and for the first phrase, we call it the if phrase, there is a comma in the middle, and then you have the result. So the condition start if you 1, 2, 3, comma, which is important, then you have a result. If you do this, this will happen. So you start with a condition starting with the if, a comma for the first phrase, and the second part of the if conditional is the result. Okay, so for the first one, which is zero conditional, we use it with facts which are generally true or scientific facts, and the condition always has the same result, so there is no change, so we call it zero conditional. For example, if you stand in the rain, what's going to happen? If you stand in the rain without an umbrella, if you stand in the rain, you get wet. There is no will or would here because it's a zero conditional. Why? Because we always have the same reason. Okay? Another example, if you heat ice, if you take ice and put it on water, what's going to happen? It melts. Or it turns into water. So if you heat ice, it melts. There is no will or would. Why? Because it's a zero conditional. We always have the same result, or it's a fact. Okay? But you have to know that it's the conditional with if is one long sentence with 2 parts or 2 phrases. The first part starts with if, and then you finish it with comma, and the result is the rest of the sentence or of the if conditional. So in the first part you have simple present, and in the result part you have also simple present. If you do this, you get this. Okay? If you put if you put wood on water, it floats. So all kind of wood floats on water. If you put wood or a piece of wood on water, comma, it floats. Why? Because it's a fact, okay? And we always have the same result. In the first part we say, if you put, this is simple present, it floats, also simple present. So we have simple present, simple present. Let's move to the second part, which we call it the first conditional. In the first conditional, we use it as a possible situation in the future. Maybe something's going to happen in the future, or predicting. You're trying to see the future, a likely result in the future if the condition happens. If it happens, okay? It may not happen. So the first part always start with if, comma. It's simple present, okay? If it rains, we will cancel the trip. So in the first part, you have simple present, comma. Then you have will or will not, it's up to you, and a verb. And the verb also in the present. So the only thing is that we have simple present, will or will not, and a verb in the present. For example, if it rains, comma, we will cancel, we will go, we will play, we will do. Okay, in a second example, if you study, comma, what's going to happen if you study? You will pass the exam. Or you can say, if you don't study, you will not pass the exam. Now, as for the second conditional, also it starts with if, comma, and a result. So there are two parts. So why we use the second conditional? We use it for hypothetical or unlikely situations, unreal or improbable, probable situation now or in the future. You're trying to do something unreal, or we call it trying to imagine unreal past. For example, if I won the lottery, what's going to happen? I would travel. So what we have here in the first part, we have simple past. If I won, if I didn't go, if I played, if I saw, if I caught, if I, took. It's all in a simple past. And the result, we start with would and the verb is present also. So if I won the lottery, I would travel. If I won the lottery, I would go. If I won the lottery, I would buy. Okay, another example, if they sold their house. Sold is the past of sell, so it's a simple past. And then the result part, or the second part of the if conditional, they would be rich. Okay, so if they sold the house, they would buy a car. And as for the last part and the third conditional, we use it with a person that is imagining a different past or imaginary situation that didn't happen. So you just go back to the past and imagine something. So it's unreal imagination. You go back to the past last year, okay, and you imagine something different. But either ways, in all conditionals, we have if as the first part of a sentence ends up with a comma. So if you had studied and the result part, you can have would have and a past participle. So in the first part, which is the if part, you start with a verb that is past perfect. What is past perfect? It's had and a past participle. So if you had studied, if you had watched, if you had seen, if you had played, if you had eaten, okay, you would have passed the exam. So you start with would and another past participle, which is have and the past participle. So it's always would have and a past participle. Would have gone, would have seen, would have eaten, would have worked, would have, etc. So the first example, if you had studied, would have passed the exam. If I hadn't been sick, I would have gone to your party. Okay? Now let's put all of these into practice. So rewrite the sentences below using if. So let's make these sentences conditionals. I don't think it's a good idea to buy a second-hand car. It's not a good idea to buy. So if you can say, you're trying to give an advice here. So you can say, if I were you, it means you're trying to imagine this. If I were you, I would not buy a second-hand car. If I were you, I wouldn't buy a second-hand car. So you're trying to give him some kind of advice that if you were him, you won't do this. Next one, my brother gets married next Saturday. So you are trying to see that if your brother gets married, okay, what you're gonna do. So if you apply for one or more credit card, you will regret it pretty soon. Or you can change the sentence. This is almost incorrect. You can say, if my brother gets married next Saturday, gets married, this is simple present, so you need will. If my brother gets married next Saturday, I will attend the wedding. I will attend the wedding. Or if my brother does not, okay, get married next Saturday, I will be able to visit you. And if you have another sentence which is three, I haven't seen my sister since, or for 3 weeks. I haven't seen my sister for 3 weeks. You can change the sentence that if you had traveled on that trip, okay, if you had traveled on that trip, you would have visited your sister and you wouldn't be missing her now. So if you had traveled on that trip, maybe he missed the trip and he wanted to see his sister after 3 years, but he couldn't make it. So if you had traveled on that trip, you would have seen your sister, or you would have visited your sister. So today we learned too many things, and the most important thing was the grammar part about the conditional sentences. We have 4 conditional sentences: zero conditional, first conditional, second and third conditional. And we started with the vocabulary, and we actually stressed on 2 things: words that easily confuse us with the meanings, and combinations of some words. Here are the references for you taken from your book Traveler 6, and some of Teacher's Guidebook, some photos and pictures from Google Clip Arts. And finally, and as usual, for more information and lessons, you can visit our website ain.edu.sa, follow us on Twitter ain_edu, or call us on this number for any inquiry or updates. That was all for today. Thank you for watching this. Until I meet you again, have a good day, and assalamu alaikum.